can talk about it. That that you have something like that to talk about. It's nice.
You hold this for a while? You like it?
Really?
Feeling a little weak.
That this whole grunge thing, that this in quotations grunge, all I want to know is, where did the term come from?
I have no idea. I think some of the rumors are that Jonathan Poneman said it one time sarcastically, and it just caught on.
Who's that?
He's one of the head honchos at Sub Pop Records. No one set out to market this music as that. That's what happens when the media catches on. They have to call it something. I like it as much as new wave. I would have been proud to be a new waver, 15 years ago.
Oh yeah, well, we were about the same age. I was into new wave, absolutely. Do you think you have some of the same? Is there anything the same between your music and new wave?
I think so.
Like what?
Well, new wave was just a progression from punk rock and a mutation of punk rock, and it was more commercial and more palatable, It had, punk rock roots, and it was easier to swallow for the media and middle America and the middle of the world, and it's just, that's what I kind of think about our music.
Are you worried about a Nirvana backlash?
Hasn't that already been over with? Hasn't that already happened? I don't know. Sure. No. I don't know.
Okay. What else I want to talk to you about?
But we're getting more new wave as the days go by. I think we're going to reinvent new wave and bring back breakdancing. I'd really like to bring back new wave and breakdancing. Meld it to something. I don't know. That's what our new music is sounding like. We're using a lot more effects boxes, and we haven't resorted to skinny ties, but I think our music's, this album's like the closing of the chapter of the formula we've been using, It's like grunge is really kind of boring for us, It's something we can't deny, and we're not going to stop playing the old songs live. Whoops. And, but, our tastes are just changing so rapidly that we're really experimenting with a lot of stuff, and it might get too indulgent and be really embarrassing for the next album, but we can't put out another album, and this is just like the last chapter of 3-chord grunge music for us. And it was an easy thing to do and a safe thing to do because we knew it's still popular, but we had to get it out of our systems.
How come you are so nice, and you seem so comfortable with yourself? Something must have really happened in the last couple of years. Is it just falling in love?
No.
What happened?
I've always been a nice guy.
Maybe you were afraid to show it before. How's that?
Well, what? I don't know. You've never met me before.
I never met you before, but I know that other people who have had the opportunity to interview, and they said, oh, he hates doing interviews. He's not going to want to talk about anything. Well, I said, well, whatever. Who knows? And you're just like exactly the opposite of...
It just depends on what mood I'm in, really. Yeah, I'm kind of a moody person, and a lot of times when someone has had the chance to talk to me, I've probably been on tour, or I've probably gone through an exhausted time where I've talked about myself for hours and hours, and this week I haven't had to talk about myself very much, so
lucky
probably
me.
more cooperative.
I think one of the interesting things about Nirvana that you don't really talk about that much is that you're very concerned about sexism. I like that. That's good. So how do you make people aware of that problem?
By writing songs as blunt as Rape Me. Having to resort to doing something like that is almost embarrassing because people didn't understand when we wrote a song like About a Girl or Polly, and having to explain that and having misunderstandings about it, I decided to write Rape Me in a way that was just so blunt and obvious that it's like no one could deny it, no one could read into it any other way, although some people have actually, because some of the lyrics in it, some people have thought that maybe it has something to do with my disgust with the media and the way they've treated us and stuff like that, but it's not true. That's not what the song's about at all. It's just my way of, in a sarcastic way almost, of like just saying how obvious do we have to be, you know? And I guess we don't talk about those kind of things that, you know, that are really important to us because I don't want to be thought of as like nothing more than a PC band, you know? I mean, we're entertainers, you know? That's what music is, and so it's really hard to, you know, step over the lines, you know?
It's that you have so much power because that camera's on you. And right, you can use it.
Yeah, well, we try to use our power. I mean, we really have been effective in certain ways, like being associated with this organization called FAIR, and I can't remember it right now because I have a mental block of exactly what it stands for, but it's something like, shit, I can't remember. but they're an organization who looks at the injustices that are, they look at the details that surrounds certain issues and certain stories that have been reported in magazines and newspapers like USA Today, who tend to, you know, look over a lot of the facts, and they're pretty much a leftist organization that tries to protect people in certain areas, you know, and they supposedly try as hard as they can to you know, to deliver the truth. And so, you know, we've done benefits like that for like No on 9 benefits to try to stop Portland's anti-gay laws that they were trying to pass, and we did a Bosnian benefit and stuff like that. And, you know, it doesn't seem like much, but, you know, we raised like $50,000 for the Bosnian rape victims, you know, and that's a lot more than we could have done griping about it and talking about it in interviews and like maybe putting out a fanzine, you know. There's nothing wrong with doing stuff like that, but, you know, we're using the tools that we have, you know, and we're being effective as much as we can. But we still don't want to be too political at the same time, you know, because it's just kind of embarrassing to do that. Or, you know, you get a lot of ridicule for it.
Yeah, but you're doing what you believe in, and that's the most important thing.
It's hard not to, you know. I mean, if you're put in this position, what are you going to do? You know, become a Republican or something? You know? Just to protect what you've earned, big deal.
We're doing
anyone who would be like your hero? Anyone that you're real pleased that you got to meet?
Yeah. That's kind of a positive side of being a rock and roll star. But no, actually, I met Iggy Pop before we were rock and roll stars. And Iggy Pop is pretty much the only person that I've met that I really, really admire and like. And
when you met him, were you pleased?
Yeah, it was a big excitement. It was great. I didn't ask him for an autograph. I tried not to bother him the way that I thought that I might be bothered. But I don't know. And then the other person is William Burroughs. I met him, and I actually got to put out a record with him. So.
Hey, tell me about the record that you're doing with William Burroughs.
Well, it's already out. It's just a 10-inch. It's just one story of his called The Priest, They Called Him. And it was a long-distance recording. He had recorded his version, and then I just played a bunch of guitar noises in the background and then mixed it somewhere else. And it came out. And now we're talking about putting out a whole album.
Wow.
Yeah.
Of him reading his work and you playing guitar underneath?
Yeah, I think I'll play a bunch of instruments this time instead of just, you know, fucking off like I did before. You know, it was just a last-minute thing where I just made a bunch of noise, but this time I'd like to kind of work on it. Maybe I'll do a Muzak version.
I'm sure William Burroughs would love that, a little bit of Muzak. Let me just make sure I have all my questions asked, and this is one that Tori Amos, did you like the cover of His Father's?
Well, it served a purpose because we used that as the opening. Before we came out, we'd play that song, and we'd come out and dance to it, do a little bit of interpretive dancing to it. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah.
The last thing I want to ask you about is, I'm not sure who in your band said it. It could have been you, could have been someone else, but someone being a little perturbed by your mainstream audience and wanting to just make music for your real fans.
Well, you know, a couple of years ago when we making these bold negative statements about things like that. You know, we were really confused, and we were scared. We were afraid that we would lose a lot of our audience that meant a lot to us, because they're people that, you know, we hopefully feel that we have a connection with, you know, the college students and people in the underground. And I don't think we've lost them. I think they're still fans, so I'm not worried about it anymore than I was at the time.